Archie Moore, Anybody Can boxing fundraiser that I went to on Saturday. This was cool. This was a really cool event. It involved a kind of a fun story and a great experience as well. So first of all, who's Archie Moore? Okay, you may have heard his name, but he was a boxing superstar from the 1930s to the 1960s, and he is from San Diego. In fact, he had a training facility, I understand, up in Ramona. And in fact, if you're ever driving on Highway 67 between Poway and Ramona, you might see a road there that's named after Archie Moore. Now, he wasn't in the heavyweight division. I was like, maybe, I don't know, it was middleweight or, bantamweight. I get them all confused. But he wasn't fighting at the heavyweight division, but he was a legit big time champion boxer from San Diego. And he started this youth foundation called Anybody Can. And it was essentially this group to get troubled youth involved, give them some discipline and some essentially some structure in their life. And he provided boxing as a mechanism to help these kids, to help them channel maybe some of their aggression in a positive way, to give them something to do, to give them something to build their self-esteem, and to provide fundraising opportunities to help these kids that may have come from troubled backgrounds, may have come from low-income families, may just simply needed mentorship, needed direction, and needed some resources to kind of really get their life on track. So good on Archie Moore. And so this Anybody Can, ABC, you see some of the guys in the photo with the shirts. This has been going on for decades. And now the charity is being run by Archie Moore's son, who was at the event. And, Archie Moore's son is no spring chicken. He's, I'm guessing, at least in his 60s, if not his 70s or older. And great man, he's there supporting his father's legacy. But it's just neat to see this sort of thing. Now, I have a buddy of mine. His name's Jerry Donadio, and Jerry, good guy. In fact, Jerry was the guy that introduced me to Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. And, I do the whole sports podcast with him, with Hacksaw on Mondays and Thursdays. Jerry is a longtime guy in the San Diego media advertising sales market. Great guy. In fact, now he lives in Rancho Bernardo, not too far from me. And as a successful person in media sales, he knows everybody. I mean, it's incredible, the people he knows and the people he can connect you with. He actually helped me, organize having Ted Leitner as my guest on my podcast. And that was it January or was it in December? Not too long ago. Well, he contacted me and he says, "Hey, you want to go to this fundraiser?" And I said, "Sure," because I had nothing going on a Saturday. And at first I was like, boxing, I'm not sure if I really want to do this, but I figured, what the heck? And he comes over and Jerry drives, first of all, a 1963 Austin Healey. And oh my God, you should see this car. I mean, it's a 2-seater roadster and it's in mint condition. He just bought it a few months ago. And this car is a work of art. It's so beautiful. And it's bright red and shiny chrome. And it's like the perfect car if you wanted to go back in time and buy a little 2-seat convertible roadster. So the 1963 Austin Healey. And, you get in this car and it's really small. It doesn't even have the 3-point belts. It's just a lap belt. And it's a little bit rickety and, kind of a rough ride at times. But what a thrill. And so we're in this car going down Highway 15, it's 70 miles an hour in this car. And the top is down and I can hang my arm over the side of the car and it feels like I could almost touch the concrete on Highway 15. We're so low to the ground. And how many times have I driven up Highway 15, and you're in an insulated car that's air conditioned and you have your music going or whatever you're doing, you're in a very contained environment. But when you're in a convertible going down the freeway, especially in a little car like that, boy, the experience is so much different. And it was fun. And everything's different. I mean, the smells are different and the experience is different. And it was just great. So Jerry and I, we roll in and we went to St. Augustine, which is the all boys Catholic school in North Park. Everyone, sort of refers to it as Saints. So we roll in there and this organization, ABC, Anybody Can, had set up a boxing ring in the outdoor basketball courts, and they had a tent over it, like a really big, like outdoor tent, like you maybe see at a wedding or something. And I'm telling you, this was a first class operation, the way they did this. It was extraordinarily well run and extraordinarily safe. It was 20 bucks. And it was, part of this fundraiser. And you get in there and there's a legit boxing ring with, the ropes, and it's up on a stage. I mean, it's real deal. There's a real deal boxing ref in there. There are real deal judges and an announcer. I mean, it was great. And when I got in, I think there were 16 bouts, and each bout went 3 rounds, and each round was 3 minutes. So every bout went a total of 9 minutes. And there were no knockouts. It was all done very safely. They're all wearing headgear, and you might be able to see a little bit of it in that photo that's on my screen. And that photo, by the way, is from one of their other events, but the boxing ring looked exactly like the one that's on the screen. And there were 16 bouts, and we might have got there for the third or fourth bout. And there were these little kids. They were like 8 years old, 9 years old. The first match we were there, it was a boy versus a girl. And I'll tell you what, man, it was awesome. Now, I have this weird relationship with the sport of boxing because on one level, boxing is pretty exciting, right? I mean, you go back in human civilization, people have loved watching fights. It goes back millennia. But on the other level, boxing is a brutal sport, and people get CTE. People have died in boxing. It's like a brutal, vicious sport. But then on the other hand, I mean, there's a lot of drama in boxing. And I mean, boxing makes great fodder for Hollywood movies like Rocky. And I mean, there's countless other great boxing movies. But boxing is a great way, for people to express themselves, people to build self-esteem, people to take pride in who they are, people to take responsibility for their own lives. In a lot of ways, there's a lot of great intangibles that come from this sport that directly benefit the participants. Maybe there are some kids that just need to have more confidence in themselves so they can handle themselves better, whether they're out on the playground or whether they're out in business. Having that discipline and that mental process of going through boxing probably builds a lot of pride in what these people do. And it's being taught to these young kids at a young age. And they gradually went up in age, and it was like, 8 and 9. And then suddenly, the first match, it was a boy versus a girl. After that was all male versus male, but it's all run extremely safe. They all had headgear on. The boxing gloves were inspected. The referees were really good at protecting the interests of the boxers. And I didn't expect to have as good of a time as I did. And then you see all the love. I mean, the other part of it is all these families that are there and friends that were there that were supporting the boxers. It was awesome. And, demographically, it was interesting too. I mean, I'd say out of the, I think I probably saw 12 bouts, and all of them, except for one bout, were all male boxers. And then there might have been 2 white boxers, maybe 3 black boxers, and all the rest were Latino. So it's interesting, kind of the demographic mix. For me, I live in Poway, and our demographic profile here is a lot different. So just kind of good to get out there and kind of mix with lots of other people. And the passion and love that these boxers were getting from their family, from their friends, from their supporters was overwhelming. And so positive, so much good vibes and positive energy. And then there were some cases, where some of these young men that were probably 14, 15 years old, they won their match. And for them, it looked like they just climbed Mount Everest. I mean, they just had this huge rush of a thrill of achievement on the shoulders of their friends. I mean, what a lifetime moment this was. I mean, it was great. And then the sportsmanship was just over the top awesome. The sportsmanship was great because they gave a medal, obviously to the person that came in second place, or you could say the loser of the match. But the loser of the match, every one of them was a great boxer that did a great job, that fought and did it safely and did it professionally and did it with respect. And I got to just give a huge props to everything that I witnessed at this event. It was incredible. It was so good. And then I got to meet John Jednak. And you're thinking, well, who's he? Well, that's a name that I had heard before. He was another one of these guys in Mighty 690, who Jerry Donadio, of course, he knows everybody in media. And so he introduced me to him. And John Jednak was the news update guy back when I used to listen to Mighty 690 in the 80s and 90s. And so he knows Hacksaw. And so we're kind of just trading some stories with Hacksaw. And that was really cool because he was saying how, back in the 70s, John Jednak was working for a radio station in northwestern Michigan. And he was able to hear Hacksaw on the radio back when he broadcast in Cleveland. And the signal at night would not only skip off the clouds, but it would skip off of Lake Michigan, Lake Erie, and then Lake Michigan. And then he'd eventually, it would just skip over Lake Erie and work its way over to the upper part of Michigan. And he would hear Hacksaw at night. So all these different connections, it was just a really neat event. So, and then Jerry and I got back in the 1963 Austin Healey and drove back to Poway Rancho Bernardo. And again, the ride itself was a thrill on its own, but the event was great too. So big tip of the cap to those folks with that organization. Anybody can, and Archie Moore and his son that are continuing the tradition. Ed Franklin on the live stream says, I'm pretty sure you could see his house from the 94 when we were kids. His pool was shaped like a boxing glove. Okay, so Archie Moore lived off the 94. Okay, so where would that be? Maybe in Southeast San Diego, maybe Lemon Grove, Spring Valley, somewhere in that neck of the woods. But I know he had a presence in Ramona. And I don't know if that was after he retired or when he was an active boxer. I'm not sure.